Hey everyone, welcome back to Ontario Gardening. Today, as discussed, we are going to do a do-it-yourself compost bin for under $10. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to show you the bins and how to do it. And then the second thing we'll do is run really quickly on how to actually compost and what you're going to put in your compost. So to make the actual compost bin, all you need is 2 storage bins or Rubbermaid containers and a drill with a drill bit big enough to drill some holes on the side. After that, all you're going to need is some compost material to put inside of the bin. You can use a tarp to cover it and some worms at an additional cost, so it would cost a little bit more than $10, but that is completely optional and something you actually can get the tarps at the dollar store, so it would only cost you an extra $1 or $2 if that is something that you're interested in doing. So in order to make your compost bin, you're going to take one of these storage containers and you are going to drill holes along the top of the container and along the bottom of the container. So I did 4 on each side here, and then I went and did some on the sides here, and you're doing that all the way around the container. That one is going to have the lid on top and it's going to go inside of the other container on the bottom. Now, the other container on the bottom, you only have to drill about 2 holes on the bigger sides, and that's just going to let heat escape. So basically, the compost with all the holes in it is going to go inside that, and any moisture or heat is going to seep through the holes into the second container, and the second container is essentially going to catch all of that moisture. And that is literally it for making the compost bin. So I'm just going to throw this inside there, and there you go. There is your compost bin for your backyard or inside of the house. So again, these are just under $10. Each one of these bins are $4.97 when they go on sale at Walmart. I actually got them for nothing from my grandparents, so this project is essentially costing me $0. So if you can get them for free or from a friend, that's even better because it's not going to cost you anything. So moving on to what is going to go inside of these compost bin, and for that we need to talk just a second about the types of materials that go into a compost bin in general. So all you really need to know is that there are 2 types of material that go into a compost. There are your brown materials or your dry materials. So that is stuff such as dry leaves, grass, twigs, hair, newspaper, hay, straw, all those types of dry materials. Just one thing to note about the newspaper: if you are putting newspaper in, you do have to get it a little bit damp. Typically, to activate the moisture levels in the decomposition, you want your newspaper to be a little bit moist. But other than that, you would want dry grass clippings, dry twigs, dry leaves, and those are considered your brown materials. The other type of materials are considered your wet green materials, and those are things such as kitchen scraps, coffee grounds, fresh grass clippings as opposed to your dry grass clippings. So what I do personally is I have a coffee can under my kitchen sink. Here it is here, and this collects my kitchen scraps. So I've got like my eggshells, my I don't want to touch it because it's disgusting, but I've got my scraps in there, hair from my hairbrush. Sometimes I get like dog fur in there too. So all of those are your kitchen scraps, and this is a great idea because the ratio to composting is 4 parts of brown to 1 part green. So I'm finding this the easiest way because what I can do is when I dump one of these in here, 1 green, into my bin, I do 4 parts of the brown. So 1 coffee container of green, and then I'll fill up, say, 4 coffee containers of the twigs or the newspaper or the grass clippings and put a layer of that. So when you're doing it, as long as you're trying to stick to a 4-to-1 ratio, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect every single time, but try and generally stick to that ratio and you should be good for decomposition. So just to show you on camera, I will do that right now. So I am going to take my 4 parts of brown, which I've already kind of measured it out here. So I could do it easier for you on camera. So here we are. And again, you want the newspaper to be a little bit damp, so I'm going to dampen it down here. Not sopping wet, but just damp. And the other thing to note is the smaller pieces, the better. So these aren't as small as they could be, but the smaller the pieces, obviously the faster it will it'll compost and it'll decompose. So there's my 2 layers, or sorry, my 4 parts of brown. And then here is my 1 part of kitchen scraps. My 1 part of green. Absolutely disgusting. Oh my God, it smells so bad, like not gonna lie. So that's something that you might want to consider changing frequently from underneath your kitchen, because we've got lettuce in there, watermelon, banana peels, like you name it, it's in there, and it doesn't smell great. So the first time, which is right now, the first time we're doing this, you do your layer and you're going to do your second layer of the greens, and you're going to leave it for this time. Now let's talk about maintaining your compost bin, because of course we got to come through and we got to stir it. You want the heat to continuously be going in your compost, and you want it to distribute the heat evenly, so you're going to come out and stir it. So about every 3 days, 3 to 5 days, you want to come out, spritz it a little bit with some water, stir it around with a stick or a handle or whatever it is you want to do, move the moisture around, move the heat around, move everything around, and let it do its job. Let the wet stuff decompose the brown stuff. And that's pretty much it for maintaining it, is just coming out and stirring it every couple days. You don't want to come out and stir it every day. That's not going to work. It's not going to let it ferment and do its job. So just every few days is good. So we're going to find a spot in the yard for this. I'm not keeping it inside, we're keeping it outside. You want to put it in a spot that's semi-shade and that can keep dry, and that's where the tarp comes in. So if you don't have a spot where it can keep dry all the time, you're going to want to maybe put a tarp over top. You don't have to, but it is optional. But if it does get, water continuously gets through these holes, then you're going to constantly have a wet bin and it's not going to decompose properly. You do need it to be a little bit dry so that the wet can overtake the brown. So here we are, I've got it in a shaded place underneath the awning so that it's not getting wet, it's not sitting directly in the sun and heating up to a crazy amount of heat. And that's where it's going to stay. When I was talking about the worms, you can add worms into your compost. You could just go to a bait and tackle shop, get some worms, throw some in there, help the decomposition process. I'm not going to do that right away because we're trying to keep this as cost effective as we can at the beginning. So I'm not going to do that. But the next time it rains, if I can come out and collect some worms for free, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to throw them in there, because if I can help it along, why not? So there really isn't much else to say about that. We are in Ontario, so one question that people ask a lot is what happens in the winter time, because we get freezing temperatures, sometimes -30. So what happens to the compost? It's obviously not going to decompose if there's no heat in order to continue its process. So you have 2 options. You can bring it inside. I'm not going to, because it's a smelly hot mess. I don't want this compost in my house. I could bring it into the garage, but really the garage isn't that much. See, the dog loves it. It's a smelly hot mess. The garage isn't going to be that much warmer than the outside. So we're actually just going to leave it be. We're going to let it freeze over for the winter time. And in the springtime, once the temperatures start to warm up and once everything starts to do its thing, we will come out, I'm going to stir it, and we're just going to start from where we left off. There is no point if you don't want it in your house and trying to fight with it and trying to save it, it's just not going to work. We are not in the climate for that. We are not in the area for that. So just let it be and continue your composting efforts in the spring, unless you, again, want to bring this inside. So that's about it for that. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to link down in the bottom what's a brown substance and what is a green substance, just to kind of give you an idea moving forward. I might even link a website or two so you guys can get an idea or a better understanding, in case I haven't explained it well enough, of how to run these composts. And if you have any additional questions, just drop them below. Stay tuned for our next video. We're going to thin out those carrots that I trench garden. It's about that time and we need to get that done. And yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you later. Bye.